What if I told you that less than 100 years ago, Soviet scientists were authorized at the highest levels of government to create a hybrid species, half human, half ape soldiers that would be stronger than humans but capable of following orders? This was not science fiction, this was real, and it happened with the full knowledge of Joseph Stalin himself. Let's dive right in. Before he became infamous, Ilya Ivanov was celebrated as one of the world's foremost experts in reproductive biology. Born in 1870 in the Russian Empire, Ivanov pioneered artificial insemination techniques that revolutionized horse breeding across Europe. By 1901, Ivanov had successfully impregnated 500 mares with his artificial techniques. European royalty, including the Russian Tsar, sought his expertise to improve their thoroughbred stables. His reputation grew as he successfully created animal hybrids, crossing zebras with donkeys, bison with cattle, and various species of antelope. His work was legitimate, published, and respected worldwide. But everything changed with the Russian Revolution. In post-revolutionary Russia, science became a weapon in an ideological war. The Soviet leadership was determined to prove that materialist science could triumph over religious superstition. In 1924, at a scientific congress in Moscow, Ivanov saw his opportunity. His proposal was shocking even by today's standards: artificially inseminate female chimpanzees with human sperm to create a human-ape hybrid. But why would the Soviet government fund such an experiment? Astonishingly, in 1925, the Soviet government approved Ivanov's proposal, providing $10,000, equivalent to over $150,000 today. The Academy of Sciences collaborated with the American company Rockefeller Foundation, which was unaware of the experiment's true purpose, to arrange Ivanov's expedition to French Guinea in Africa. In November 1926, Ivanov arrived at the Pasteur Institute's research station in Kindia, French Guinea. His true intentions were kept secret from his French hosts, who believed he was simply conducting comparative reproductive studies. Over several months, Ivanov attempted to artificially inseminate at least 3 female chimpanzees with human sperm. The donors of this sperm remain unknown to history. Whether they were local men or members of the Soviet expedition is unclear from the records. Despite multiple attempts, none of the inseminations resulted in pregnancy. The biological barriers between species proved more formidable than Soviet science had anticipated. But rather than accepting these failures as evidence that such hybrids were impossible, Ivanov proposed an even more controversial next step. Returning to the Soviet Union in 1927, Ivanov brought something disturbing with him: a plan to reverse his experiments, and at least one orangutan named Tarzan intended for his next phase of research. His new proposal was even more ethically abhorrent: to inseminate human women with ape sperm. Even more disturbing was his methodology. The women volunteers would not be told the true nature of the experiment. They would believe they were receiving artificial insemination from human donors. The Soviet government approved the establishment of a special primate station in subtropical Sukhumi, Georgia. Construction began in late 1927. The facility would house Tarzan the orangutan and other apes intended for Ivanov's experiments. Historical records confirm that at least 5 women allegedly volunteered to be inseminated with ape sperm. Their identities remain unknown, as does whether they understood the true nature of the experiments they were agreeing to. But as Ivanov prepared to begin his human experiments in 1930, political winds shifted dramatically. Joseph Stalin had consolidated power and begun purging intellectuals across the Soviet Union, particularly those with foreign connections or who had risen to prominence before the revolution. On April 13, 1930, Ivanov was arrested on charges of creating a counter-revolutionary organization among agricultural specialists. His real crime may simply have been his connections to Western scientific organizations and his prominence during the Tsarist era. Sentenced to 5 years of exile in Kazakhstan, Ivanov was forced to work as a local veterinarian. The once renowned scientist who had lectured across Europe now treated farm animals in a remote settlement. On March 20th, 1932, just 2 years into his sentence, Ilya Ivanov died from a stroke at age 61. His controversial experiments died with him. The orangutan Tarzan reportedly died the same year at the Sukhumi primate facility, which would later become a standard primate research center for conventional Soviet science. For decades, Western scientists dismissed accounts of Soviet human-ape hybridization experiments as Cold War propaganda. But with the opening of Soviet archives after 1991, historians discovered the disturbing truth. The experiments had been real, authorized at the highest levels of Soviet government. Modern science has confirmed what Ivanov discovered through his failures. Despite sharing approximately 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees, humans, and great apes, have different numbers of chromosomes. This chromosomal incompatibility makes viable offspring virtually impossible. The story of Ivanov's experiments forces us to confront uncomfortable questions that remain relevant today. Who decides the limits of scientific inquiry? How easily can the pursuit of knowledge be corrupted by ideology? And what safeguards do we need to ensure science serves humanity rather than political agendas? If you found this scientific horror story from history fascinating, hit subscribe for more.